Hey everyone, welcome to this year-ender episode of the Trendcrusher podcast. As you've seen and clicked on the episode, I've got Sai Sanjit on this episode. Retrograde, his debut album, is one that I've been listening to a lot ever since it's released a few months ago, and I thought it would be a great way to cap off this year with getting to know more about an album that I've spent so much time listening to. It's a deep chat, so grab your favorite beverage and 3, 2, 1, here it is. Okay, so before I introduce my guest, I think I have to introduce my special co-host for this episode. So I think if you are on the internet and you're involved in, I don't know, quizzing, music, if your specialty is in music prog rock, you definitely know this gentleman. Say hello to Berty Ashley.
Hi. Oh, I'm saying other people are saying hello, so I shouldn't be saying hello. No? I
Yeah.
should be waiting for other people to say hello. Okay, got it.
But thanks so
Hello
much,
again.
thanks so much, Bertie, for doing this and taking time out. I know you have like a million things on your plate, but I couldn't think of a better person to co-host this episode with.
I'm very excited as well because knowing what's coming. Yeah.
So, of course, if you've clicked on this episode, you know who we're talking to. We're talking to Sai Sanjit. Welcome to the show, Sai.
Thank you so much, man. This is, like I said, feels surreal. I've dreamt of stuff like this to be able to talk about my story. So to actually be here is quite crazy.
And I think, I had to kind of get this episode done this year uh, because this year has been a great year for you, right? And I
Yep.
think it's, I saw Spotify Wrapped you posted. And, one of the things that occurred to me is for a lot of us in Bombay, India, and all the metro cities, we think like, hey, this guy is such a cool musician and we're listening to him. And then you see Wrapped and you're like, wait, we're not the only ones listening.
Yeah.
So let's actually go back. And I think the origin story is the best way to kind of go with this. So I'd like Bertie to take over because I was actually introduced to your music through Bertie. And I still
Yeah.
remember, actually, let me go back. I actually was introduced to your music thanks to I Built the Sky, who did a feature on one of your songs. And
Yes.
I
Yep.
recognized Suyash Gabriel also, who played drums. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting kind of thing. But then Bertie introduced us to you. So, Bertie, why don't you tell us how you came across Sai and why were you like, hey, you guys have to listen to this guy?
Okay. So, um, the first thing is I have this random WhatsApp group, if you might be aware of, that you both might be aware of. It's called Chuck and Bertie's group. And basically, it was started way back by one of the other listeners of this podcast, another fan of this podcast, Chuck Gopalakrishnan, and I, in which we talk about prog and metal. It started off with only prog and metal. Now we talk about all music. And there are lots of musicians there, there are a lot of fans there, and a lot of people reach out and say, hey, have you heard this? Hey, this is my music, can you hear it? And so on and so forth. And then I do give everything a listen. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, this is nice, let me share. And we do have a lot of independent musicians in our group, right? And we have discovered some amazing musicians like Zoran Miranda, who's on the group. His album's great, synth pop and all. And another musician like that is Deekshit. Now, Deekshit is from Chennai, and he's a guitarist for a band called Order Realm and another band, and they had some albums out. And we were talking, and one day he just says, hey, by the way, have you heard Sai Sanjit? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And he was like, there's only one song out right now, and I think you should just give it a listen. The album wasn't out then. I didn't know who he was, and I don't think he's ever played live at that point of time to the point that I had knowledge of that name. And then Dixit said, okay, and then send me a link. And I was like, what? What? This guy's from Chennai? And he's like, yeah. This guy is living in Bangalore right now, but yeah, he was in Chennai and he's a good friend. I can put you on. I was like, yeah, put me on. And the very interestingly, it was good timing, I would guess, because I was that was when we had the news that Portnoy had rejoined Dream Theater and they were planning to do a tour. So I was in the middle of my Dream Theater phase. I was like, okay, excellent, let's listen to Dream Theater full on. And then this guy's song comes along, and it's just like, it just fits in. It's got the vibe, it's got the technicality, it's got the same feel, but at the same time, there is this notes of Aviel there, there's notes of Mother Jane there. It's got my favorite genre, prog metal, and but it's original. So I love people. Okay, for those who don't know, I run a music platform called Original Dog, right? And our tagline is that we are called Original Dog because we don't like copycats, right? But I do have to emphasize that inspiration and is a huge part, plays a huge part in music. A musician makes music based on what has inspired him, so he pays tribute to those people. So it's not copying. But then, when you make really good original music, it should have the spirit of it sounds like somebody, but it's not the
Yeah.
same. But it makes the listener think of that person, right? Now, here's the thing: if I want to sound like Bob Marley, right, I just have to play a reggae tune and then sing like Rasta, right? But the point is, it even if it does happen, it's just a very similar vibe. It's very, very difficult to make music that inspires you of the original, but still feels very, very, very original and fresh. And that this gentleman managed to do. And he managed to not only make me think of Dream Theater, but a few other bands all at the same time. And I was like, done. I remember one of my first messages, like I think the fourth message I sent to him was, "Hey, are you a fan of the band Enigma?" Which has nothing to do with prog metal and rock. And he said, like, yeah, I've heard a few of the songs. I'm like, yeah, some of the chord changes there are from, that whole ambient vibe. And I was like, this is so cool. And the next thing I was like, I gotta tell everybody about this. And that's how I brought him into our fold, and now he's become a friend. Like we know him well, and we make fun of him. But at that point of time, I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's a great artist. We have to put him on a pedestal, and make sure that people know about him." So that's how I got to know. So again, thanks to the wonderful community of musicians who
Yep.
help each other and tell each other about and make the connections. So shout out to Dikshit and his work here, man, doing God's job here.
100%, man.
So
I
that's how I
think,
got to know of, yeah, that's how I got to know of Sai.
yeah, and I'm so glad, Dikshit made that connection because I was also kind of fumbling around. I was like, okay, I've put so much time into this. Nobody seems to be listening to it. And, once I joined the group and the kind of support and love you guys have shown me, it's just been amazing. It's been, sometimes you wonder, should I have done this at all? What is the point? But then to see the kind of comments you guys made, the support just made it all worth it. Like, huge shout out to you guys and Dikshit for making all of this possible. So, yeah.
I Peter, this is absolutely true, right? The first day itself, I think it's one of those days when very rare days when Sai was also not busy with work, and I was not. I think I was in the airport as always. I was in some airport, and I was listening to him, and I messaged him saying, "Dude, this is so good," and I was giving you running like commentary, like song by song, because he had sent me a pre like before the album had come out, and I was like, "Hey, this line, this is that, this is this," and after every song, he'd be like, it's so nice to see someone react this way. I didn't know if anybody would listen to it. I didn't know if anybody would like it. I was like, what are you saying? What are you saying? Like, how can you believe or think that nobody would like? He genuinely had a huge. That day, one of those bad days in his life. I think he was going through a major crisis. He was like, "No, see, like I get very few people who don't even know about this. I don't even know if there are people out there who listen to this type of music." I spent half the day convincing him, "No, this is really good. You have to, wait for the album to launch. I'll make sure." And that's when I told him about, we can do album launches, and that's a group
Yeah.
where I can. I'm sure there are tons of people. And now. Sai, you are on Spotify's Wrapped for about three or four of people in our group.
Yep.
You are number three, or you're number four in Kakashi Hatake's group, and Kakashi listens to about 10,000 minutes of music, and you are number four on his.
Yep.
And then for
Yep.
Jay and other people, you are number two. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Yeah, Pete.
Yeah. 100%.
No, I think like a great progression from this because we talked about that origin story. Uh, but I believe, Sai, for you, this is like, I don't know, 7 years of work and
Yep.
culmination of something that you did, right? And I think when briefly we chatted, you kind of told me about all of that. But take me back to like that first uh, part, right? Where you actually thought of putting together an album because I have huge admiration for artists who put out albums because they know that, hey, the listener also cares about it, right? Because it's so easy to say, let's put out a single or a 3 track, 4 track EP. But, an album is an entire, it's like running a marathon, so to say. And in your
Yep.
case, this was 7 years. So tell us about like at least the start of that process.
So for me, when I joined Fish in the Sink, I think that was back in 2013. So the vocalist Riju, who also sang on Retrograde, he came up to me one day and he was like, "Listen, I'm going to give you some lyrics and I want a song by tomorrow." And at that point, I was like, "What is he talking about? There's no way. I've never done that before." And then I said, "Okay, I have nothing to lose." And after college, I was just trying to do music full time. I didn't have a job or anything. So I just sat, put something together and showed it to him the next day. And he was like, "This is brilliant. I can't believe you came up with this in one day." So at that point, I hit like this purple patch where I was writing a few songs. When it comes to how I decided to make this into an album, it's kind of a funny story because I got a session work at for some Tamil film, and I went there to the studio and I just froze. I was sitting there. It was simple stuff. It wasn't too complicated compared to some of the bass lines I was writing for Fish in the Sing, but I just froze. And I went back home that day and I was like, yeah, I don't think music is for me. But having put so many years of my life into trying to pursue this, I'm going to put out this concept album as a kind of swan song, like my goodbye to music, saying that, you know what, I tried my best, and put it out on SoundCloud and be like, okay, at least I have something to show for at the end of all of this 10 years down the line. So that was how the whole uh, idea of putting out an album, that was like my goodbye to music, saying that I tried. And fortunately, at that point, I was going through something. So all the music that I wrote automatically had a theme, and some of the songs I kind of how do I put this, I was like, okay, so this is how I'm feeling, why, what made me feel this way. And that's how Hypodermic Needle came into place, where I felt like a media and social media influences so much of what we do, and we all think we're so original and we're all just templates at the end of the day, like this kind of existential thoughts. So one thing led to the other, and this concept just kind of presented itself. And for me, as cliche as it sounds, I think The Dark Side of the Moon was one of my biggest influences of a concept album done right. So I kept that in mind. And of course, the Avials and Porcupine Tree and all of that in mind, and slowly stitched it together in a way that I thought, what would I like to listen to as a 90s kid growing up with grunge and Linkin Park and all of that? What would I want to listen to? And that's what essentially Retrograde is. Like Bertie said, I wasn't shy of putting my influences out there and capturing the essence of all the bands that I grew up listening to and put it together in a package that is me, that kind of represents who I am as a person. So yeah, it was, in a short story, it was my goodbye to music, and ironically now it's like just the beginning of my phase into being a musician. So that's, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's the first time I'm hearing of this. But okay, next question, and I think this happens when you actually listen to the album, right? Is on track two itself, you've got, which is Calms of the Sheep, you've got featured Uday Benegal, you've got Sujit, Riju, and Suyesh Gabriel on there. And I think that was one of the things where I was like, wait, how did this guy get Uday Bengal to kind of guest on his album, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, you've also got like I Build the Sky featured, you've got Moses Cole, you've got quite a few people featured. It one thing to kind of say, hey, this is my swan song to music, to actually making it all happen and then getting all these people to kind of feature on there. So how did you kind of work that way? Like who was, because of course now I understand that Riju uh, plays with you in Fish in the Sink, so that makes sense. But
Yeah.
how did everyone else kind of become part of this entire thing?
So Riju and Suji are both Sujit Wale Vittal are both Fish in the Sink members. And so initially when I spoke to these boys, I was like, okay, I'd initially written these songs and we were going to use it with Fish in the Sink. And then I think there was a point where all of us were kind of unsure of what we were doing. So we were like, okay, I think we need to take a break, and we kind of disbanded. And then I reached out to them saying, can I release these songs as my own, since we're not a band anymore. I'm not gonna use it for the band. So at that point, I reached out to Riju to sing on it, even though it was just a SoundCloud album. And he told me, why don't you just reach out to other people and see, try something different. So with that in mind, I reached out to some vocalists from Chennai, who again I grew up listening to, and they actually responded. They came home, we chill, had a couple of beers, they recorded some demos, and that got me thinking. I was like, hey, these guys responded when I didn't think they would. Let me just DM all these people and see. I have nothing to lose at this point. And that's when I reached out to Suyash again. I was like, okay, this guy is one of the best in the business. Is he even going to be free enough to respond or check out my message? I'm sure so many people message him, and he actually checked it out and he said, I love it. Let's do it. And that set the whole chain of events in place. I was like, okay, I'm just going to reach out to anybody that I think would be perfect for this. I did it very consciously. I wasn't like, okay, let me just slap some big names onto it. I was very particular about why I chose each of these people. And coming back to Uday, same. I just DM'd him and I said, yeah, I love everything about you and what you've done for the Indian scene. You've paved a way for all of us. And I reached out to him. I sent him Qualms of the Sheep, and he liked it. He said, let me come on board. And yeah, that's about it. He even suggested, so the chorus coming back was actually his suggestion. It wasn't supposed to be there again after the breakdown. So that was crazy. Yeah. He even wrote some of the lyrics. He said, do you mind if I change some of the lyrics? I'm like, you are Uday Benegal, you can do whatever you want. So the pre-chorus, he actually rewrote the lyrics, made it more refined. So yeah.
Okay, who else was on the wish list that didn't reply? I'm very curious. If you don't mind. I mean, who knows? You'll set it out, right? They may listen to this episode and be like, damn it, missed
Yeah, this
opportunity.
is gonna sound crazy, but I actually reached out to I DM'd Miles Kennedy, um, and I also reached out to Tim Henson, and yeah, I think just these two. Yeah, I wasn't surprised that they didn't respond.
Who knows, right? Like
Yeah.
at some point they may catch wind or things like
Yep.
that. But that's really interesting. But the flip side of that is now that you have all these musicians in, right? And I think uh, handling, first of all, any creative process is not fun. But
Yep.
then second, like this, when everyone is spread out and you're doing it, uh, how did you kind of navigate that role between going from, hey, this is like a project I wanted to do in terms of a creative album, to now, hey, I'm project managing this and putting all these files together and ensuring all of that happened? Like, how did you kind of navigate that?
That, I think, a huge shout out to my bandmate and my boy Sujit. He is a full-time musician. He's a producer and a mix engineer. So he co-produced the album with me, and without him, I don't think I could have managed any of this. So he was the guy who put all of the guest artist parts together, comped all of it. Because for me, I only know how to write music. I don't know anything else. So that was, yeah, he made it a lot easier for me. And he, the kind of time he took on it to make sure that every single note, every single part was perfect. It took a long time, but it is what it is because of him. So I think yeah, that was in terms of the recording part of it. Yeah, in terms of the managing all of these artists coming on board, all of them were an absolute dream to work with, like, professionals. So it was really not easy. I send them the track, they send me the files, like, do you like it? Good to go. That's about it. It was very straightforward. and a huge learning experience for me also, as somebody who's doing this for the first time. It kind of sets a benchmark of how you want to be once you're at that level also. So yeah.
Okay, so I think at this point, since Bertie has given a great introduction to the album and we've got some context to it, I think let's play a track from it. And I know it's cliched and it's really hard to pick one, so let's contextualize it, right? Uh, I know you mentioned Hypodermic Needle, but was there another track like which kind of set off this entire process for you?
I think Qualms of the Sheep was the missing piece that made me realize that there is a potential to make a concept album, because Ruminate and Somewhere had already written before. And so Qualms of the Sheep was that song where I was like, okay, there is something in this that I'm not really seeing yet. I need to spend time with it. So yeah, I think that would be the song that for me is the main song in the album in terms of a concept point of view. But I know we're not supposed to pick favorites, but for me, I think my favorite song is Ruminate. It has always been my favorite song. So yeah.
Okay, so I think you've picked actually your favorite. So here's Ruminate.
Rising to the light that blinds your eyes, feeling so calm. Thoughts start running through your mind, the calmness slips away. Lying warm within a depths of your sheets now, staring at the ceiling. For all that
And that was Ruminate by Sai Sanjit. And I've got the man himself here. Uh, Bertie, you wanted to ask him something?
Yeah. So the thing is, I don't think we've ever talked about the concept as such on the group. We've been talking for so long. Everybody thinks they understand what the concept is and have an idea of what it is in their mind, but we've never actually asked the man himself what the concept is and where it came from. Was there an incident or just general life or the world itself which well inspired him to come up with the concept? So, Sai, if you could put our aspirations at rest, tell us what the concept is.
Yeah, so firstly, I never wanted to promote it as a concept album and stuff like that because I feel like that is open to interpretation. But I think it was just life in general, me just reflecting and wondering, what exactly I'm doing with my life, why I'm wasting time, and very existential thoughts like that. And then that got me thinking as to why, what are the things that are making me so deviated from what I want to do and what I can achieve. And I think that's where the whole aspect of social media and how we're just plastered to our phones, constantly being bombarded with information and based on algorithms of what we follow and stuff like that. So, how that then trickles down into this whole herd mentality of how all of us are templatized to a certain degree and how we all think we're very unique in our views and opinions, and how slowly in this process it was very personal journey where I was just like, okay, so what now, what am I actually doing, how much of what I'm thinking is actually original. And then you start introspecting and wondering, questioning everything that you do. You kind of distract yourself with not in all cases, but at least in my case, with romantic relationships or just these fixing projects. And then you realize that you had the antidote to kind of fix your life the entire time, which is to just wake up and arrive every day. But somehow it's just convenient to go on with how life is and complain. By the end of the day, it's too late and life is just whizzed past you. So that was the whole. I don't know if I've done it justice, but that's also in the order of the tracks. If you see the lyrics and the whole arrangement, like Hypodermic Needle in my head was how it's just this riff that goes throughout the song, and there are multiple layers that keep getting added. For me, that was like social media slowly penetrating your mind and kind of taking over. And then Qualms of the Sheep is when you look around and everybody's pretty much doing the same thing. And then you go on to From Under, where you start questioning, what is going on, and just going along with the system. And with Ruminate, you start thinking, you're like looking in the mirror, you're like, what exactly am I doing? Somewhere was actually written by an ex after our first date, where she wrote the lyrics to Somewhere as a poem. And ironically, to this day, it still kind of summarized what that relationship was, which is just like a fixing project for each other. And then Wither is like, you've kind of lived your whole life. And did you live a good life all within those lies? Is like you've just told yourself these stories. So yeah, that was the concept in my head. I don't know how if that comes across, and that's not something I ever wanted to talk about when I was releasing it because I wanted people to experience it on their own. So I hope that answers the question. I don't know if I digress too much. Yeah.
No, and I think it's fair point, right? Because with musicians that I speak to, right, at some point they don't really want to share concepts because once they put it out in the world, then it's up to your interpretation and how
Yeah.
you kind of see it, right? And I think everyone who's kind of heard Retrograde at this point has kind of made that album their own. Uh,
Yeah.
what an interesting thing I wanted to bring up before we go, because there's so many layers to the entire project, right? Or and I don't know why I'm calling it project, but to me it kind of feels like that. Uh, is the fact that you chose to also
Is it,
release. Sorry.
are you calling it a project?
Yeah, yeah, truly it is. But one interesting thing I found is that you also decided to put out the instrumental tracks along with the album. Uh,
Yeah.
why make that choice? Like you could have put it out as a separate album, or I don't know.
For me, I wanted all the elements of this project project to speak the same language, right from the artwork to the lyrics to the music. So for me, I wanted to give another avenue for people to listen to it. And I was kind of hoping that even without the words guiding you, I wanted the music to tell you the same thing. And again, like I felt like another aspect was also the insane amount of time we spent on the production of the album to kind of, I think in the instrumentals, you can really soak that in. You hear things that you possibly didn't hear in the ones with the vocals. So yeah, these are the two main reasons. But the main reason was to see if, the music and the words and everything is speaking the same language on their own and together as well. So yeah.
I for one, am very thankful, because one thing that we don't talk about is how good a bassist you are. You are a fantastic bassist, my man.
Thank you so much.
Not only you write great bass lines, but the playing was so fluid, and love the bass lines, and which, as you rightfully said, come out very well in the instrumentals. And I'm so glad you did it. And yeah, if you think that if does it carry the story without the vocals, yes, they do. And I love the segues between them. Really nice, very well written. Was that on purpose, or did it just happen? Like, especially from Hypodermic Needle into, that segue is just flawless. I don't even know if
Yeah.
it's two different songs. How does that work?
That was intentional. Like the hypodermic to qualms of the sheep was intentional because, like I said, one led to the other in terms of the concept in my head of, social media then leading to people just being templatized. So I wanted that to be kind of connected. But the rest of it was not as intentional. But once the song was written, I did want there to be some kind of continuity. So it was a little bit reverse engineered. So that's why if you see, it's not too obvious also, because that's a very cliched thing to do. So somewhat connect them so it kind of flows as one huge sound rather than individual songs. And one thing I forgot to mention is I felt like the whole concept of retrograde applies to the existence of a person's, like, just one day and as well as the lifetime in my head. That is one thing that I wanted to speak about initially, but then I was like, okay, let's just leave it out there. So yeah. Yeah, sorry for just randomly plugging that in, but yeah.
No, fair point, right? And I must add, because I've particularly enjoyed at certain points listening to just the instrumental tracks. So I'm glad you threw that on. But this is the time I again go back and plug the Chuck and Berty group, because a month ago we did a listening session at the Headphone Zone. Shout out to Raghav for allowing us and hosting us over there. And again, I think I always joke that, and he actually said that the headphones available there ran into crores. So everyone had access to these really expensive headphones to listen to the album. And I hosted the part where also we talked about Retrograde. And one of the things uh, I did was I only played the tracks with vocals, because I wanted everyone to kind of see the difference, and the fact that, like, there's, even for me listening to it on a different set of headphones, as cliche as it seems, or maybe placebo effect or whatever, you actually notice far more intricate things about the album that you didn't hear before. So that was one of the things. And I remember, I'm glad Bertie mentioned it. The bass also was one of the things that definitely kind of stood out for me. But tell me this, right? I mean, like, how important was you in terms of the production, right? Because you took your time and there was no kind of like deadline or nobody. Did you have like a certain, benchmark to what kind of sound it would be like? I mean, it's pretty obvious when we talk, and we've had this discussion before. Like, I don't think any Indian band can match the production on that Avial album, the self-titled one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy,
Yeah.
because I had it during the listening session, and I was like, guys, this was released like 15 years ago, and still we haven't heard production like
Yeah.
that. So I know Bertie already mentioned Avial and Mother Jane, but there like other Indian international releases that you had kind of benchmarked it against?
Yeah, so for me, again, number one was Avial. Always from day one, it was Avial. And I think even the Industry album was Yeah, I think the Dissolve album was one of my benchmarks as well. That's how I found out about Tim Palmer, actually, who then eventually mixed the Qualms of the Sheep single also. So these are the two albums that I mainly kept as a reference from like Indian artists. And of course, In Absentia from Porcupine Tree, which is another reference point, again, which was mixed by Tim Palmer. So I think these three were predominantly like the go-to references for the entire production.
And I'm glad you brought up Tim Palmer side because you actually got him to mix a track on the album. Uh, Tell us how all of that came together.
That again, so Uday was doing a show in Bangalore, and I messaged him asking if I could just, grab lunch with him or something. And he was, nice enough to say okay. And I'd asked him about, the Indiscreet album, how it sounded so amazing. And he was telling me about Tim Palmer. And then I went back, researched on him, and I saw that In Absentia, the 10 album by Pearl Jam, like all of these, which are some of my favorite albums, he had mixed. So I found his website, and his email ID was on there, and I just shot him an email because I was in that whole mind space of, okay, this seems to be working right now. Let's just go with the flow. I shot him an email and did not expect him to respond. Within 10 minutes, he responded, and I sent him Qualms demo, and he really liked it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I did not think that would happen, and it did. That's pretty much the story of this whole album, to be honest. It just somehow worked.
No, and I think that's a great lesson or takeaway for any musician, right? Because I think, let's be honest, self doubt, all of this imposter syndrome is something everyone kind of deals with, right?
Yep.
And it's not easy. I think, like, while you're making it sound so easy, let's be honest, sending that one email also sometimes can take a lot, right?
Yep.
And especially when you're talking like someone like Tim Palmer or even someone like Unai Benegal, right? Like people who we've kind of heard so much music from. Uh, I think it's one of those things where you let go of any kind of inhibitions and be like, what's the worst thing that can happen, right?
Exactly. And I think
forget great learning. This is a great post for LinkedIn. This is one of the things that you put up on LinkedIn. Do not doubt yourself.
I don't want to
send
be one
that
of those
mail.
people.
You are one of those people right now. The story you told was perfect LinkedIn story.
Yeah.
Do not doubt yourself. Reach for the stars because even if you fail, you land on the moon. This is the stuff
No,
that
but
you
also,
do.
like I said, for me at that point, given that this was like my goodbye, in the sense I have nothing to lose, I've tried my best. That kind of helped to not overthink these things. I was like, yeah, I have nothing to lose. That's it. Let's just do it. If it works, it's going to be life changing. If it doesn't work, nothing's really changed. Your life is still the same. So there I go again, sounding like a LinkedIn post.
Now, don't be conscious. Sai, this is the point where I get a little selfish. And as someone who's a collector, I'm going to definitely push you and ask you for physical copies of the album. Not vinyl, but at least CDs. But one thing I really liked about the album was, all the creative work that went into it, right? All the graphics, the artwork, including like the cover art itself, right? And one of the things you've gone out also is done individual artworks for each tracks, including the instrumental ones. So tell us how all of that came together.
Yeah. So from day one, I wanted it to be like everything to be tied together, from the artwork to the music. And the CD and the cassette era did coincide with me growing up as well. And I used to really look forward to going to the landmarks and buying these cassettes. And I would always be intrigued by, those little booklets that come in the cassettes and the CDs. And for me, that is something that I always wanted to do. So with this album, I was very insistent that I had artwork for every single song. And a lot of people said that is a bad idea because you can only put one artwork on Spotify and Apple Music. And I said, yeah, I really don't care. This is how I want to do it. It might be old school, whatever, but that's how I want to do it. So I reached out to Venki, who is like a really good friend of mine. He's one of the top animators in the scene. Absolutely amazing person. He's from Chennai as well. And I had some scratch artworks that I'd made on Shutterstock, since I'm a graphic designer myself. And I reached out to him and I said, yeah, I'm doing this whole concept album, and I can't think of anybody else to do the artwork for me. And this guy is so busy and he's swamped with projects. He has a job. Like I said, he's worked on a bunch of videos for Steven Wilson as well. He kind of was so happy for me that I was kind of doing this, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this for you. Don't worry about it. Let's just sit, brainstorm." So he was in Chennai for a while. He's currently in France. So when he was in Chennai, we brainstormed for each song, kind of came up with visuals, and then I just let him do his thing because he's so good at what he does. So once the brainstorming was done, everything else was all him, and I think it was perfect. The artwork captured the essence of the songs. Even the colors that he chose for each song was like absolutely perfect. And yeah, and for the artists also, I wanted to kind of build this universe of Retrograde where everybody is kind of in that art style, which is why again he came up with these really cool animations for every single artist that I don't know if you guys must have seen on my Instagram. So before every single that I released, I would kind of put a collab post with them in the Retrograde universe. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Sai, for sharing all of that. And I think if everyone hasn't heard Retrograde as yet, definitely go check out. I'm going to leave links. I highly recommend everyone get a copy on Bandcamp for two reasons. A, higher quality, but also they get to support you in a far better way. Now, this is a year-ender episode of sorts. And I thought, since I have access to both of you, and I love doing this segment with all musicians, Berty knows what's coming up, is because Berty actually featured on one of these episodes last year. So let's do it this way. Sai, let Berty go first so he kind of sets a precedent. You get some time. Berty, in the last year, let's keep it Indian since we're doing, and we've got an Indian artist. What has been like one artist you heard or one track that you heard that you think everyone should definitely check out?
Excuse me, whatever I wanted to say, you already said it about Sai Sanjit and Retrograde. So now that that's off, I have to come up with something else. Oh, okay. I know your okay, so this I'll say. Can I give two? Because randomly, let's break the rules here a bit. So my first was obviously going to be Retrograde, but now that you've taken it, I'll give you. I know your fans are mostly like heavy and rock and metal, horns up, obviously. So what we're going to say is there's a Hope for the Flowers. I hope they got the name right. It's not Hope Off or Hope for the Flowers. It's a Bangalore-based band, right? And they have about like 16 people following them on Spotify and about 30 people who know about them. And this is the type of Hope for the Flowers is right. And they have 67 monthly listeners on Spotify right now. They have only 2 songs, right? And they are metalcore. Really good. It's just 2 guys from Bangalore who are doing some music. They just put it out silently. Their Instagram has like about 100 people following it. And I discovered them and I've been like, I guess they are the next Sai Sanjit for me. Sai is now become that bar. Okay. So I hope next 20, like how 2024 was for Sai, 2025 would be for these guys. So the band is Hope for the Flowers. And one of the songs I would like to talk about is they have only 2 songs. The second song is called Rouge, which just came out some time back. Proper metalcore, nice growls, nice singing, nice breaks, some good work over there, right? So that's one. Fuck yes, I don't want to my misery! For gilded cages, your beauty is spin away life.
And that was Hope for the Flowers with Rouge. Now on to Berty's next pick.
That kind of like was like, wow, this is written by one of our people, is by this singer-songwriter called Frizzel Dsouza. And she's an original dog artist, and we helped produce her a new album. And there's a song called Paintbrushes in the Ground. And everybody who's heard it live, like all my friends who came to Bandland, who were all decked in black, was ready for the mosh pit, listen to the song and go, "Hey, wow, that's nice. It's got a nice vibe to it. It's not rock, it's not metal, but it's got that feeling that I keep telling the artist Frizzle, if she had released this on MTV in the 90s, she would have won a Grammy. Like it's one of those songs where it's just like it's so nice, it's so well produced, great lyrics, Paintbrushes in the Ground by Frizzel Dsouza. Go check it out. Those are my two.
Dawn breaks here yet again, alone in this apartment. Paintbrushes scattered all around. Sweet as fire, the flame burns slowly. Do you see beneath the glory? Paintbrushes digging into the ground. Surrender, morning, come unto you. Surrender, morning, come unto you. Take it easy, you're doing great. Slow and steady. You've known the drill all your life. This is nothing new. Romanticize the alleyways, the dim-lit skies and darker days. Wipe that tear running down your face. Paintbrushes all around. Sweet as fire, the flame burns slowly. Do you see beneath the glory? Paintbrushes digging into the ground. Surrender, morning, come unto you. Surrender, morning, come unto you. Take it easy, slow and steady. You've known the drill all your life. Easy, slow and steady. You've known the drill all your life. This is nothing new.
Okay, Sai, now you've had some time. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
I think there's this one, the song called Liquid Sunshine by Tarang Joseph that I heard recently. I think he put it out this year, which I thought was super, super nice. It's like a pop song. And that was one that really caught my attention this year. And of course, Tsoma by Zokova, which just came out yesterday. It's an absolute masterpiece, man. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how three people can have a sound that's so large. It's, I think that one is, I think, probably my favorite song of the year already, even though it's been like a day.
I'm so glad you mentioned Zokova and I didn't have to. First up is Tarang Joseph with Liquid Sunshine. Here it is.
ocean. Take a sip out of my cup. Let it trickle to your fingertips. Feel your feet lift off the ground. Ticket for your spirit, one-way trip to Neverland. You can take off your coat and ego as you feel your mind expand. I wish you could feel what I'm feeling. Paradise, can't you see it? It's in the air.
And that was Tarang Joseph with Liquid Sunshine. Now to round off the picks, here is Zokova with Tsoma. thanks so much, guys, for sharing all that music. And I think one of the things I love always talking to musicians is they always want to like push forward another artist. They're always checking out other artists also, right? So thanks so much for doing that. Uh, Sai, now back on to you. I know you mentioned Fish in the Sink before. I believe Fish in the Sink are active again, or at least I found
Yeah.
out thanks to you also. So,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about that?
So we have a 9-track album coming out, hopefully early next year. I think that is some of our best work. We've been a band together for 10 years, and we had this little get together in Kochi last year where we have more than 25-30 original compositions ready to go. We kind of voted, saw which ones we want on the album. And yeah, that's that. We recorded all the parts earlier this year. It's being mixed as we speak, and it's going to be something to look out for sure. It's quite something. Excited for you guys to hear that.
And for everyone who's heard Retrograde, how can they catch up with you, see you live potentially? Is there anything like that on the cards?
Hopefully, I'm thinking of taking it on tour next year sometime, but I need to figure out the logistics of it because there are so many artists and so many things I need to figure out. And hopefully, though, I think you can follow me on Instagram or whatever, and I'll keep you guys posted there.
If you could get Uday Benegal, I Built the Sky, everybody to tour along with you, that'll be the best tour of the year for me.
I think I wouldn't mind just
Yeah.
getting somebody else to play bass and sit in the audience, to be honest, if that is the lineup that's possible.
Sir, how do I volunteer for this job? I volunteer.
It's done.
But yeah, who knows? Like I always say, right, and always end podcasts with stuff like this is that, you know, we just put it out there in the world. Who knows who's listening, how it can make it happen, right? So thanks so much, guys, for joining me. Really appreciate you guys taking time out. I mean, both of you guys are really busy people, but really appreciate you taking time out to do this chat. And yeah, let's do another one probably in the new year.
Sounds awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first ever podcast also. So yeah, it's been fun. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Pete. And you know, as a longtime fan of this podcast and now returning member, alumni, this is enjoyable because the last time, remember when we talked to Jonas from Scar Symmetry? He's one of my favorite musicians, and I ask questions and you relay the questions and I hear it later. This time, I'm actually on the call with my favorite artist, and it feels really good. So I just want to tell you, Sai, as much as we make fun of the stuff that we do and we have lots of memes going around together, you genuinely are one of my favorite artists, and it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor not to just talk to you but be part of the Retrograde universe. So thank you for sharing your art with us, and thank you for doing what you do. Keep doing what you do.
So much.
This is not your last. This is the start of a new adventure, and good luck with that.
Thank you so much. One last note. See you guys, I'm not an AI. That's a little bit of an inside joke, but yeah. If you know, you know.
Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this year-end episode. Lots more coming up in the new year on the Trendcrusher podcast. As always, stay tuned to my social media. I'm Trendcrusher on Instagram. If you're a label or a band and want to get your music featured on the podcast, hit me up, trendcrusher@gmail.com. It's been a great year 2024 for metal, rock, punk. Looking forward to a lot more music in 2025. See you in the new year. Cheers.